Hi, I'm Lonna Kelly. This is Hudson Valley Art Speak, and thank you for watching today. And I have a real treat for you today. I have photographer Tom Kavana is here with me, and we're going to be talking about the work that Tom does and his series of people that he's met on the street. Hi, Tom.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming today. I'm really, really interested in your work and hearing some more about it. And you said you've been only photographing people for about 10 years now?
This is about 10 years.
Yeah,
It's about 10 years, yeah.
Yeah, so you spend a lot of time in the city?
I do. When I moved back to New York about 10 years ago, I ended up through a series of events, spending a lot of time in New York City, and I started meeting people, and I decided that maybe a camera wasn't a bad idea.
Uh-huh. And what kind of, do you shoot digitally, or
Just
did
digital.
you start with?
Just digital.
Yeah, digital? Yep. Yeah.
I started off with a very basic Nikon camera, and almost 8 years of using that camera was great.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me, how do you do it? I mean, you know, you must have to stop and talk to people and establish a relationship. And I can see by looking at your pictures, you're not using a telephoto lens to capture stuff.
No, I'm right. I'm usually right up on top.
Uh-huh.
No, usually what I do is I very rarely do I take candid pictures. Usually what I'll do is I'll introduce myself, I'll walk by, I'll establish a little rapport if I feel like someone's interesting and they would make for a good photo, and you know, and usually, I mean, most of the time, the vast majority of my photos are people who might not be necessarily seen in everyday life, you know, so I you know, usually when you stop and you introduce yourself, I mean, they're usually taken back a little bit, you know, that someone's actually speaking with them, you know.
Yeah.
And so you develop a little bit of a relationship, and you know, I always ask if I can take their picture. If they say no, which is very infrequent, then and I take their picture. I always promise if they have email to send it to them.
Yeah. So do you work strictly in black and white?
Just strictly in black and white. Until very recently, I've just started to do something a little different. But I mean, black and white is my medium.
Yeah, I think black and white adds a lot to these pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's talk about that one picture that I told you I thought was just stunning. The man with the blonde hair and the white jacket standing in the city.
Yeah, I was on 42nd Street, and he had just come up out of the subway, and his hair was actually, really wasn't blonde, it was pink, and it was like a hot pink, and I immediately, I said, look, we have to talk about this. And we had a little conversation. I found out he had just come to New York City. He is literally just coming off of the train from New York City, from Pennsylvania. He had never been here before.
Wow.
He comes up on 42nd Street. And he's a dancer, and we had this conversation, and I must have taken 500 pictures of him. But that was the one I thought was really, really good, because I made him stand out on 42nd Street, and he was a really nice guy. His name was Jazz. That's all I ever knew him as, and I sent him his picture, and that was that.
Yeah, I love that straightforward look on his face, and the way you dealt with the depth of field in the background and the converging lines behind him. It just all came together.
Just sheer luck. That was nothing other than just stand in the street. Let me take your picture.
Yeah, it's never sheer luck. You were there. You know, you worked on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a fabulous picture.
Thank you.
And another picture that you gave me, which was very similar, it's a man with black hair, and he's standing in front of a white background, a plain white building in the background. He's got a dark coat on, dark-haired, white background. Yep. That's another one that just really pops out.
Usually what I do when I take portraits of people in the street is I really am just, it's not anything scientific. It's just something that I look for in the eyes. I look for some type of emotional connection. I mean, those are the pictures that stand out to me when you look at people's photos. I mean, the people that, can you identify with the picture?
Right.
Can you identify with the emotion? Can you see it, what it is? Do you wonder what's the story? You know, really, do you wonder what the story is? You know, that's what I always hope for.
Yeah, that's kind of the magic.
Yeah.
You know, get people to think, what's the story behind the picture? And I love when people will look at something that I did and tell me a different story. Completely different story, or tell me an experience that they have that that relates to the picture for them.
Mm.
I had a picture in a gallery a few months ago, and it was a picture from the New York City Dance Parade, and it was a group of women belly dancing in the streets, you know, just part of the parade.
Right.
And I took the picture, and it was actually a very commented on picture for the show. But one woman came in when I happened to be there. I was gallery sitting, and she walked over to the picture and she said, "I know that woman." And she did. She knew two of the women in the picture.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
People have said that to me. They're like, "I have seen your photos. I've seen that picture." And I'm like,
Yeah.
really? It's always a shock to me, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I do have a web presence, and you know, and I do have a Flickr account, and, you know, and I do post some on social media. But I mean, it's always a shock. It's always a shock when people say that to me. I'm like, really?
Yeah, yeah. Thinking about those two pictures we were just talking about, and how the focus was so much on those young men standing in the foreground with the background out of focus, so without much of a depth of field. And then there's another picture where it's a man standing by his truck, and I guess it's his wife is sitting inside, and it's so crystal clear that you can see the pens in the visors in the truck. So, you know, what leads to decisions like that?
I wish I could quantify that for you.
Yeah.
I really I couldn't tell you. It's just when I see something, usually it's how the interaction goes. It's usually how the interaction goes it will directly relate to how good the photo is. You know, I mean, how warm a response and what type of you know, thing we have together will directly reflect. Those people were really, really nice. Those people lived in their van. I mean,
I was wondering that.
it's no secret. You could see what it is.
Yeah.
And they're both, I mean, and they lived in their van, and they lived down at Walmart in the parking lot at night, and you know, but they were both really, really, really pleasant. I mean, and it was a really nice interaction, and, you know, and they were more than happy to let me take pictures, you know.
Yeah.
And so that was that, you know.
Yeah, the man has a very kind and pleasant face.
He just radiates. He radiates happiness.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to really look for. He really does radiate. I'm okay. You
Yeah.
know, these are just things and situations. You know?
Do people ever tell you their stories?
All the time.
How they ended up on the street?
All the time.
Yeah.
Every single time. I always ask. Every single time. Yeah.
Yeah.
People like to talk. They like to tell you their story if you treat them with respect, and you know, and you know, it's if you're unimposing and you treat them with respect and you're actually interested, they will tell you their story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find most of the people living on the street, or are they in shelters or in transitional housing, or?
Most of the people on the streets, especially in New York, are not shelter people. They're actually outside people.
Yeah.
And you know, because the shelters are incredibly dangerous in New York City. And so usually when I ask, because I always ask, are you in the shelter? Are you outside? Where are you going? What's the plan? You know, I always ask them what they're thinking about doing, you know, and very few. I run into very few people in the shelter. I mean, it's really not necessarily a safe haven, you know.
Right.
There usually a lot of people would rather rough it on the street, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you'd be very, very surprised. I don't know if you'd be surprised, but I know every single time I'm surprised when I'm always shocked at how that happened, you know, how it happened.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I do some work for an affordable housing organization that works with people who have been homeless or on the verge of homelessness. And it is shocking. It's, you know, it's people like you and me who, through a series of unfortunate occurrences, sometimes end up living on the street. Or I met one man who had lived in the woods in Westchester County for 15 years. You know, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's the people that we don't see. You know, I had a show one time at a gallery, and I just saw, you know, the seeing the unseen. You know, these people purposely, you know, and it's not because of I don't think any malice. I just don't think that people want to see them because it's just painful to look at.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to believe that.
Or it just doesn't enter their minds. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Hudson Valley where we live, you don't see a lot of people.
No.
Although sometimes when you look, and I do because
I look too.
I've worked in that field, and I think, there's a guy I see whose car is full of his goods, everything, and there's a couple of cats in the car, and I don't even know how he drives it, but I've seen him around a few different places, and he's got to be living in his car.
Mm-hmm. If you have cats in your car, most likely you're living there.
Right.
Right. It's a safe assumption. Yeah. There are a lot, and it's just it really is unfortunate in where we live, the country that we live in. I mean, I don't take pictures to be. They're not a political statement. It's not. I do my very best to distance myself from any type of political statement on it. I mean, it's just their statement. The pictures are statement enough.
Yeah.
They don't need me to help.
Yeah. No, it's great that you're giving a face to people who aren't seen. Yeah. So where can people see your work?
Well, I have a website, obviously, and I have a Flickr account, and right now there's a show at Arts on the Lake in Carmel that's going on for another couple weekends. And I just finished a show over at Studio Around the Corner in Brewster. Right. And so right now there's really not a whole bunch more than just that right now. And but I'm working on some, I got really kind of keyed up by a photographer named Bruce Davidson, which most people have heard of, and he did a Subway series in the 80s, and he did that in color, and it was very vivid and very bright and very kind of slightly on the outrageous side. And I started, spending a few weekends in the subway, and that's what I'm doing a little color now.
Yeah, and you shoot in the subway? And
I shoot in the subway.
It's okay?
It's okay.
I mean, I've certainly taken pictures in the subway, but not in a subway car so much.
In the subway car?
Yeah. People are good?
So far, no problems. So far, no problems. I usually ask, though,
Yeah.
Yep.
That's great.
Yep.
That's great. So you're going to move into color a little bit, you think, or is it just temporary?
Just a phase. Just a phase.
Yeah.
Just a phase. I'm colorblind, so doing color is more difficult for me than the average person, I think. Shading and tones and things like that are a little bit more difficult. I mean, the outrageous is easy. So 80s color, a Polaroid is easy for me. But I mean, to do subtle shades, that's very difficult. I find myself, it's much easier with contrast.
Yeah. Yeah. One other thing you mentioned was a group of photographers that work together at Arts on the Lake. Yeah,
I'm a member of a photo group at Arts on the Lake, and usually we meet the third Tuesday of every month, and it's a group of people. I mean, and there's probably between 12 and 15 of us on an average, and I mean, it's from every step on the ladder. I mean, from people who shoot with nothing more than their phone, and to people who have many thousands of dollars worth of camera gear, and people who are professionals and people who are complete amateurs, and it's a very easy group. So I mean, if you are interested, it's definitely it's fun. We're a fun group for a couple hours.
You set up a studio shots sometimes, don't you? Different things like that?
Sometimes we do studio shoots. Sometimes we bring over lights and backdrops, and we all contribute. And we get a model, or we'll do something like that. And other times, we've been out on trips, to different places, like either the city. I took a trip to the city one time, and one of the other members was taking people to the Great Swamp and so on.
Right.
So it's pretty nice.
Well, great. I'll look forward to that.
Yeah.
So Tom, our time is up.
Thanks.
So Tom Kavana, thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.